I don't know if you saw this last night because I want to ask you about the Trilly Donovan tweets that were out there. Then Mick Cronin is apparently now off the board.
Yeah, we were going to get there. Yep.
But did you see the Eric Crawford tweet last night? He said somebody asked him, Robert Sherman asked him. So I'm stealing this content from him. Who's our next coach, Eric? And I guess I didn't want to go down this route, but this is what I had my Twitter sphere opened up, or X. It says Eric Crawford said, I don't have a good feel, so I'm not weighing in. I do think most of what's out there now is just chatter. I think there are legit candidates who have hardly been mentioned in a few. I want to get this right as
you are getting lots of talk that may not be among the finalists. I would imagine and here's a big point I'm at. I imagine agents are pretty active getting names out, but the more serious you are, the less you want your name out there right now.
Precisely.
That's where I'm at. When I look at Louisville financially, and I know I've said this many times here, but I feel like it's worth saying again. The guys at State of Louisville did the open records request to where Louisville between 2018 and 2026 are paying $39.9 million in buyouts. Yeah, eventually Kenny Payne's $8 million on top of it. That's 47.9, basically $48 million in buyouts. Plus, you add in the additional layer of Louisville's not in the SEC or the Big Ten. They don't have, while the ACC makes good money off the TV deals, it's not nearly as much. That gap that everyone keeps talking about is a large gap that does matter and makes a difference in how much money you have to pay for it. That doesn't even get into all the other stuff of the donors and the jury stuff and all that stuff. I'm going to try to stay away from that side of it. Just the hard facts of $48 million in buyout money, plus not having the open pocketbook that the SEC and Big Ten schools have. So I look at a dude like Eric Musselman, and if he takes the job, that would be spectacular for Louisville. I think he would do a great job, be a great fit, and he's the type of guy that's proven that he could go somewhere and win immediately. He did that at Arkansas, he did that at Nevada, and he has a really good understanding of the transfer portal. And yes, I get it. He hasn't had the greatest year this year, but I'll take the dude that had 2 Elite Eights and a Sweet 16 the previous 3 years and trust him to figure it out personally. But to say that Louisville can just money whip Arkansas because they're traditionally a better basketball program is foolish because Arkansas, one, has the SEC money. 2, other than Kentucky, they might care about basketball more than any other school in the SEC. And yes, that's obviously a massive drop from UK, but they have a really good atmosphere at Bud Walton Arena. I'd love to get there one day. It looks like a lot of fun for a big game. But 3, even they have the Walmart money, man. like people don't talk about that. But I think it was I was talking to Strebel. He said he had a guest on last week where UK played Arkansas. He asked him, said, yeah, no, they would open up the Walmart money for Eric Musselman. So for me, him getting his name out there, and again, I have nothing to back this up. This is just me speculating for just the pure idea of speculating. I could totally see Eric Musselman doing the same type of thing Bruce Pearl did, where his agent's just trying to get his name out there just so he can get another.
Oh, you're not happy with me right now? Just know others are still think I'm I'm a high tier coach. No, I completely agree. I think Rutherford put something out, and I know our buddy Ty Spalding shared something from his head on LSL and said, "Watch out for this. Like this is going to be something that happens." And this is something Ennis, I could have kissed his beautiful bald head on the forehead and just, I was like, it's exactly how I felt in regards to, the prearranged marriage, it felt like with Chris Mack, which upset a lot of the former players. If you go back to that, and Vince Tyra, a lot of former players' optics, not doing a due diligence and at least talking to Kenny Payne. Then the next one, it's funny. I heard you and Greer talking about a few earlier this year with you. We were talking about you brought up Greg Garr, and he's like, I said that. I was like,
he did say that.
I've been taking that and running with it on the B show when I fill in. So it's like, I hope you said it because I'm either slandering you or completely making that up. But anyways, it was conveyed that from I recall, and maybe it was just our discussions with you and I, it was Kenny Payne, mid-major coach, or somebody like Greg Garr, Matt McMahon. Were like the ones kind of in that scope of who Louisville could get. And people lost their mind over somebody like Greg Garr.
Yeah.
And Jack, you're a basketball Benny. Where is Wisconsin ranked right now?
In the top 10, and they play Purdue on Sunday. And if they win that game, they'll have a 2-game lead in the Big Ten.
Bingo. The reason I asked that, and I bring that up, if I don't want Josh Hurd to listen to sports talk radio. I know it's terrible unless he wants to have an AirPod in for ESPN Louisville, but not listen whenever this comes up. I don't want him to listen to you. I'm sorry, Jackie Gross. I don't want him to listen to former players. I don't want him to listen to donors. If he, in his heart of heart, because I think he'll probably hire another search firm, boy, we're in the wrong business, Jackie Grossman.
I know. We gotta get in on that, man.
We got to get on that. Grossman and Baker. We need another name to sound like a legit Jewish entity on that. But if he has somebody who's off the radar, who is a non-sexy name, I'm okay with it. I'm going to sit back because it's his decision and nobody else's. And he will have to, because it's a career move for him too. Like, he can't sit there and hide behind an interim this go around. Like, this is something that is going to have to be a make or break type of hire for him. And, it's just fascinating to me because we go zero to big names and you have to have a big ego and you got to win the press conference. I'm open to anything, my man. Like that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've seen the Indiana State coach around. I've seen Iowa State. I'll listen to everything. I've seen Lamont Paris at South Carolina. But as Double D and Blank have said multiple times, you get to a couple wins in March, boy, your profile goes up a little bit and you show up on people's radars. There may be somebody, and that's why I thought Eric Crawford's tweet was so interesting. There may be some folks that are just putting their name out there to maybe get a little extra payday and get an extension. It's like, oh, I'm not having the best year right now. Well, others are highly, considering me in some regard. So, but I'm open to anyone in any discussion and an open dialogue about why it could work here, because there's not that sure thing out there right now. There's some that may be perceived better than others, but when you talk about, I want somebody that has Final Four experience, do you know how difficult that is to get somebody? Like, if Scott Drew, he won a national championship at Baylor, has been there 2 decades and has a brand new arena. Like, just because he's from Indiana, like, that's his own thing down there. Like, I'm open for, look, I would love for it to happen. Somebody like Kelvin Sampson, who I think, not to be an ageist, Bob, sorry, but I think he would be a great fit here. But he's got a great thing going, a powerhouse going down there. So it may be a dose of reality of just kind of the pecking order. I think you can have those discussions, but man, I don't know if it's just going to be the prearranged marriage like with Chris Mack and just laser focused on KP. And then even going back to the Pitino stuff, I mean, he had to be convinced because it was like Michigan was in the mix. I think this is going to be a fascinating just couple weeks or months after. Hopefully it's under a month, whoever that next coach is, if in fact Josh Hurd decides to go that route.
Yeah, and it's uncharted territory for Louisville because, you just said it. It's been since 1971 since Louisville's had an actual coaching search for basketball, which, and I'm sure there's historians that could go into more detail about how Denny Crum was hired. I don't really know. I don't really know if he was, kind of preordained as the dude, or if they did an actual search and delete to him. Obviously, whatever it was, it worked out, but it's been at least about 50 years since Louisville's had.
It's going to be a dose of reality, man.
Basketball. Yeah. Because, even the big name guys, Musselman hasn't had the greatest year. Jerome Tang hadn't had the greatest year. Mick Cronin obviously has had a really, really rough year at UCLA. All these dudes that you've kind of considered as these are the frontline guys haven't had great seasons. Scott Drew's still in the top 15. He's really good, but I still think that's more of a pipe dream there, if anything else. That would obviously, I think he would be the absolute best dude you could get. But that's like Kentucky fans and Billy Donovan type stuff there. It's kind of how I feel about that, to where I back in the day, to really go back in the time machine there. But I just on the agent stuff, because the names I've heard, I don't know a lot. I'm very much on the outside. The few things I have heard have come from people who have talked to sports agents, and that's kind of the names that I've gotten, to where I'm like, okay, that's, you almost have to take it with that grain of salt. So, I had one person tell me Shaka Smart would be interested. That to me was like, why would Shaka Smart leave Marquette?
Yeah, he's
already taken the big swing with Texas, and it didn't go great. To where, he took the money, he took the high profile job, and it really didn't work great. Now he's at Marquette, which is probably, a top 20 job in the country, and has a really, their own good tradition. and have been to Final Fours, won a national championship with Al McGuire. And he has that thing rolling where they're in the top 10, top 15 year in, year out right now. They won the Big East last year. They were a 2 seed. They're probably going to be a 2 or 3, maybe a 4 seed this year. Why would he leave that at this point?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think it would be an experiment more maybe like the Tennessee coaching search with Josh Heupel, where it was a kind of a people were excited, but it's like, okay, like show me, prove to me. And then a fun first year and people were
that's
excited.
the thing. If you win games, it really doesn't matter. And that's where I go back to, obviously the Chris Beard discourse has been really heating up this past week. And here's I want to get your thoughts on him also, Phil. I mean, it's a tough conversation to have.
Yeah.
I don't know what the right answer is, but I'll say this. Taking my personal thoughts out of it, when you look at sports and the sports culture, you can be, he wasn't convicted. It was all alleged what he did, but you can have personal issues in sports, and some can call it a second chance. Some can call it just turning a blind eye to it, whichever way you want to phrase it. But you can do bad things and still be universally loved in sports and still be a winner and win games. Because at the end of the day, if you win games and you win championships, win titles, people look the other way on that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's just how it is. And it gets proven over and over again, no matter what sport you want to look at.
And again, I mean this yes, because it is a difficult discussion to talk about. But to your point, I heard Ennis and Biscuit, and I think Griever joined them to talk about it. Not all alleged, baggage things are the same thing or at the same level.
Will Wade baggage and Chris Beard baggage are two totally different things.
Precisely. But what I think it comes at, as you pointed out, alleged. And I understand the fatigue from the Louisville fans on that. I really do. Before you joined Strebel and Anna yesterday, they had a very impassioned discussion about it. And James, our buddy James Black on there too. And it was funny to me because my thing is, and this is, take Chris Beard out of it because I know you're talking about it, but just baggage, Kelvin Sampson, Will Wade, anybody with baggage. They were going back and forth, Anna and Strebel, Kentucky folks, that were essentially saying, aren't you tired and fatigued of being the laughingstock? And I was like, let me ask you this. Let's just play devil's advocate. And again, I want to reset over and over again. This is not just about Chris Beard. It's any coach that you deem that has baggage. You've tried the nice guy thing. You make fun of Scott Satterfield and the L's down and everything. He got everybody at the station. You didn't get a bottle, or I didn't get a bottle. A lot of people bourbon bottles at the station.
I would have liked to have gotten a bottle. Yeah.
I would say there. Kenny Payne smiles after losing. How's that going for him? You tried these with the altar boys and all these things, and it's not the diminished because all baggage is not equal to the same. I understand the fatigue of a lot of Louisville fans. I truly do. But do you, in my opinion, this is just me, I think the damage is already done. I know a lot of people have said over and over again, the athletic department's worked really hard to try and fix its perception. You have friends in Atlanta that you've met since your time down there. When they think of Louisville basketball, how do they think of it?
Strippers and hookers in the dorm.
And
it's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate.
To quote Pat, and yes, I did quote Pat 40 on that.
So I think it's just when you keep worrying about everything, and I understand within the fan base, like serious allegations with the Beard stuff, but the Kelvin Sampson and Will Wade, not the same. I get it. I understand the fatigue. I truly do. But if you're trying to appease everybody in the athletic world, in my opinion, I think the damage is already done with that. In my opinion, do not think that Chris Beard is realistic, because I think the conversations that have been out there, they kind of threw him a lifeline at Ole Miss. I know it looks like his buyout would be obtainable, but coaches are wired a little bit differently to where they think they can take on any and all challenges and make it work and kind of be the hero and rewrite their history. And it's funny because, again, not trying to be the one up. What's the difference between a guinea pig and a rat? One has a good PR agent.
I'll say this. I mean, Chris Beard's also the same dude that took the UNLV job and then left for Texas Tech 2 weeks later.
Right.
So like that, I was just Googling to make sure that to confirm it was like 98% sure. It's like, so I do think that, it would honestly help Louisville that Ole Miss was kind of the first school to take him. I would think, honestly, and I'll say this, like, and kind of the big point I was kind of getting at is it doesn't really matter what type of person you are. If you win games, people don't care.
Right.
And I don't know if that's right or wrong. And that being said, there are a lot of different types of personalities that win. Like, I kind of disagree with the kind of the segment of Louisville fans that are that kind of make the point of you can only win with an asshole.
It was used against Bobby Petrino when he was here, of saying they didn't know where his office was. He's too mean to the kids. Satterfield's going to love him up. So to your point, it's the moving of the goalpost that to create your argument for what you ultimately want to have happen.
Right. And I think it goes back to the point of people usually want the opposite of what they had of what the fired coach was. But I think, Jerome Tang, had the long thing about loving up his players earlier this year, and he was in the Elite Eight last year. Scott Drew's whole thing is like wholesomeness, friendship, family. He's a big religion guy, and he won a national championship and built a monster at Baylor. I think you can have a lot of different personalities that win. Just the question does it come down to, will you win games? And if you win games, whether you're a saint or an asshat, and I'm not just calling Beard an ass. I don't want
in general, it's a blanket statement on anybody. I mean, coaches, I've heard, Musselman's prickly. It could go with him. Like, if he doesn't mesh well with the media, like he's a jerk after a couple of losses. And like these things and these narratives get created when things aren't going well, and how do they react to it?
Yeah, that was always my thing with Chris Mack. People got mad at Chris Mack saying, he didn't handle the media well. He didn't handle the Louisville job well. People weren't saying that the first 2 years when he took a team that was an NIT team under David Padgett, lost its four leading scores and made the NCAA tournament, was ranked number 1 year 2, was going to be probably a 3 or 4 seed. People didn't care about that until he stopped winning games.
They're taking a step further. I think his name's Mason Holden from WHS 11 asked Kenny Payne the question, what halftime adjustments did you make? Paul Rogers on 93.9 DeVille asked Kenny Payne, God bless Paul. You talked about him just being as professional as can be. It's like, is it fair to say the basketball IQ it isn't quite there? Paul Rogers asked Kenny Payne that. And it's just, so to your point with the media, all that stuff brushes over if you're winning. People don't care about what assistant coaches, maybe wearing Nikes. Maybe that's a little bit of a different discussion.
That's only Louisville fans care about.
Precisely. Like no one spots it. I send it to my little group message. I send it to my little group message because I laugh about it, but it keeps piling on it's like 1,000 little paper cuts. And that's what I think ultimately is going to make the decision. But I know that we tried to avoid the coaching conversation, but it's inevitable. You're like Thanos, because I know you don't understand that reference because you watched nothing.
I actually have seen most of the Marvel movies now.
Wow, that is a shocker. That is a shocker from you. I did not have you as that. I just thought you were watching Sports Center for the 7th straight hour or something like that, or recaps the Baseball Tonight or something from back in 2018.
I'm watching 1998 Baseball Tonight to see all the Sammy Sosa.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. Well, that's basically I felt like we had to hit on the coaching search stuff today because it's just been such a big topic this week, and I'm happy we did. But Phil, really, really appreciate the time. I'll be back with Coach Lieberman. I think we're planning on Sunday or Monday, kind of getting back out there. But really, really appreciate the time again. We'll get you back on here as well, man.
Of course, man. Appreciate you anytime, man.